All right, guys, welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you as always for waiting patiently for the show to actually begin. We have some really, really interesting topics to discuss today regarding PlayStation. You're saying I'm 5 minutes late? No, we always have a little 5 minute intro there. But yeah, we have some really interesting topics to go over and talk about for PlayStation today. Sony had their earnings report, and with that, we've learned a lot of very interesting and I think important information about the future of PlayStation, what the next year or so potentially looks like. One of the major things we're going to be talking about over the course of this stream is the fact that Sony's interim CEO, Hiroki Totoki, made the announcement that they are delaying half of their live service games. And this is quite significant because it seems to pretty much confirm all of the speculation that we've been doing for the past couple of weeks about the live service push from Sony, in that it seems to, I don't want to say it's backfiring, but it's definitely not going the way they thought it would. And obviously, a lot of people, when they hear this now, are beginning to really wonder if Jim Ryan truly did just decide to say, hey, I'm going to retire. I mean, it's a natural thing that people are going to ask at this point, right? So we'll dive into that. But other things we're going to be talking about, you're saying, Shelly, you're saying, nope, it's the opposite. We're going to be seeing 6 live service games over the next 18 months. That's one game every 3 months. Hiroki has been mistranslated. Well, it is important to understand that when we say, I mean, that's just basically the opposite way of looking at it, where we're still going to be getting these live service games. We're just not getting all 12 in like a shotgun fashion where it's like every 2 months a new live service game is dropping. But we do have the other half of these live service games that have apparently not been delayed / canceled. And yes, they will be coming. And we'll dive into that. I actually want to go over each PlayStation studio that is currently working on a live service game and talk about whether or not it's likely their game got delayed or if they're one of the 6 games that is going to release. And so, yeah, it is important to note that when we talk about half of the games, we're talking about a total of 12 live service games. The question that I'm not sure we have an answer to it, I mean, when Sony came out like a year ago or a year and a half, I mean, were they counting GT7 as one of their 12 live service games? If so, well, we do have to factor that in. But yeah, we'll dive deep into that conversation. Some other things we're learning about PlayStation, though. We're getting an update on sales figures for Spider-Man 2. We're getting an update on sales figures for the PS5. We're learning about what Sony is going to be focusing on growth-wise going into 2024 and beyond. We're also hearing about, we're not getting like explicit details, but they do talk about acquisitions and possibly what we can expect to a small degree. And this is all the stuff we're going to be covering today. This is pretty much going to take up the entirety of this stream. So yeah, before we get into that, I do again want to thank you guys for joining me. I just want to let you guys know a couple of ways you can help support my channel here, help support the stream, help support the show. There are multiple ways you can do that. Firstly, you can hit the like button, right? If you do enjoy the streams and you really appreciate them and it's content you appreciate, just take a second of your time, hit that like button. It helps a lot, right? It gets the streams out in front of new viewers and it helps us grow the community. So I'd really appreciate that. If you want to go above and beyond and help support me directly, I am fan funded here on the channel. I do rely on you guys for direct support to be able to keep doing this and to keep this thing going. There are 3 ways you can do that. Number 1, becoming a channel member. You gain access to some exclusive perks. Number 2, if you are a channel member, even if you were gifted a channel membership, you also have the ability to gift channel memberships. It's a big thing we do on the channel. As I say, we have a lot of generous individuals here who frequently give out membership gifts. So yeah, it's a great way to get the community more involved, but also a great way to support me directly. And then finally, last but not least, you can also consider donating a super chat. You can ask a question, give an opinion, make a statement, everything in between helps kind of flow the conversations into different directions, but it also supports me directly. So a big shout out and a big thank you to every individual who supports my content directly. I really do appreciate it. But I do have two chats here, two milestone chats that I'm going to read. The first comes from the Caped Crusader, a longtime member for 30 months. Really appreciate that support, buddy. You're saying, not surprised. I knew the live service push by moron Jim Ryan was going to be DOA. I feel bad for the developers forced to work on these kind of games. Well, definitely, I'd say right now, Caped Crusader, quite a few people are feeling similarly. Hold on. Sorry, guys, I have to readjust my microphone here. Give me 1 second. But yeah, Caped Crusader, I think that many people are feeling pretty much the same way that you are right now, where, you know, they're actually kind of happy to hear that PlayStation is seemingly pumping the brakes on this super aggressive live service approach. I think that the number one thing people thought Jim Ryan was really making a big mistake with, I mean, there are many things that people didn't like that Jim Ryan was doing, but the number one thing was this aggressive live service push where he was coming out year after year, focusing on it more, talking about it more, talking less and less about single player games. And obviously, we have the reports of what's going on with Bungie. We have the reports about the Last of Us multiplayer. And again, this just seems to be confirmation that things are not going the way they thought it would. So, Caped Crusader, I really do appreciate your... sorry, again, I'm messing around with the mic here a little bit. I'm getting some weird feedback. Thank you again for the longtime membership, man. We also have Joseph X1, a member for 3 months, who says, did Spider-Man 2 underperform? Many were expecting 6 million copies sold in 3 days. Millier tweeted that Sony was expecting 6.2 million copies sold on launch week. That's a good question, and I guess we could start there. One of the things that Sony did announce is that Spider-Man 2 has sold more than 5 million copies, sold through specifically more than 5 million copies in the first 11 days of launch. And this has caused, I guess, some conversation. People, is it 11 days or 10 days? Maybe it's 10. I think it's 10 days. But basically from the time it launched to the end of October. And this has caused a conversation to spark up, people asking the question, did it underperform? Did it do as well as Sony was expecting? The truth is, we have no way of truly knowing that because we don't know what Sony's internal expectations were. I mean, you're referencing Millier saying that they were saying it's going to take, or that they were going to hit 6.2 million in launch week. I don't know if that's what we should base this off of, because I don't know. You don't know. I don't know if we can trust that, right? Could that have been Sony's internal target? Yeah. I mean, it doesn't sound totally unrealistic, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, if it's true that that's what they were trying to hit, and it took them, like 10 or 11 days to even hit 5 million, that's a big miss, right? Like, they definitely were off the mark there. But we also have to acknowledge that 5 million copies of a game sold at $70 on a single platform. I think this is where people need to relax a little bit and understand that that's successful. That is very good. Maybe it's not as great as what Sony was hoping. We don't know. We don't know. I don't know. The only thing I do know is that objectively, 5 million $70 copies sold within less than 2 weeks on a single platform that has less than 50 million is really good. And so the big thing about Spider-Man 2 is it's likely going to continue to sell well throughout the generation. A game like Spider-Man 2, to me, is one that has a long tail. It's a game that is likely going to just, each year sell a healthy amount. And I think at this point, we'll just kind of be sitting back and waiting to see how long, right, it's going to take for them to hit the 10 million mark. I think that'll give us a much better indication of how well this game is selling versus whether or not it may be underperforming. But in my opinion, I don't think it's underperforming. I mean, it would be, if Spider-Man 2 is underperforming at 5 million units sold in less than 2 weeks, I would be worried at that point. Like, you know, you're saying Spider-Man 2 costs near 300 million. See, that's the thing. Where did you get that number? Because I didn't see anything about the cost of Spider-Man 2. If Spider-Man 2 did cost 300 million to develop, I mean, yeah, this could be a little bit concerning, but I don't recall seeing anything like that. I want to give a shout out to John, which is also my name. So big shout out to John, who decided to become a channel member today and show some direct support. Let's get some W's in the chat for John. And let's also get some W's in the chat for Corey, the legend Landiga, who, again, he always just kind of comes in and surprises us with some big membership drops and gifting. He drops 10 membership gifts right off the bat here. So between his generous 10 memberships gifted, very generous, and also John choosing to become a channel member, we just shot up to 11 members on the day already, which is very kind of you guys. Thank you so much for that support. Corey, you're the man, dude. Honestly, you have just shown such consistent support for the channel. You're honestly one of the biggest sponsors of the channel, Corey, and I really do appreciate that. So, guys, let's get some more W's in the chat for these guys. That's for you, Corey.
Appreciate it. Do not
and also,
be sorry.
I'll do 2 God of War sound bites since it's this is the 1 year anniversary of God of War Ragnarok. But yeah, that's the thing, man. I just do not know. I do not know where that number's coming from. You're saying it cost 300 million. I mean, here's the thing. Spider-Man could have cost 300 million, right? It could have. I just don't know that we should be throwing around numbers without some kind of official confirmation. You know what I mean? Like, for example, I'm seeing 6.2 million expected to sold. That's a rumor from somebody who I think a lot of people, I don't know if they would consider them a reliable insider or not at this point. And now I'm seeing, somebody mentioning 300 million. It's like, we don't know these things, guys. We don't know. And we have another legend. Following up Corey's 10 membership gifts, we have Hellbound 1981 coming in here and dropping 5 more memberships on the community. Hellbound, big shout out to you, my friend. You as well, a big sponsor of the channel. You're always coming in here, always giving out membership gifts, and we are very grateful for that, and I greatly appreciate it. So, Hellbound, let me give you, let's see here. I'll give you a Mark Cerny. I want to hear from Mark Cerny again. I feel like it's been too long. Maybe next year with the PS5 Pro. And then Crazy Arnold. Crazy Arnold for Corey and Hellbound. Corey says, Hell's got my back. Thanks, bud. Yeah, dude, he's always following you up, man. I really appreciate it. Really do appreciate it, guys. So that brings us up to 16 members on the day. Let me add that to the counter here. So very close to already hitting the goal, which is impressive stuff. I have another milestone chat here from Brandon Martin, a member for 1 month. He says, I missed the PS3 days when you get bomb-ass single-player campaigns and awesome multiplayer like Uncharted 2 and Killzone 3, or Uncharted 2 and 3 and Killzone 2 and 3. Just do that. Brandon, I couldn't agree with you more, frankly. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I love the idea of getting, like you're saying, these incredible single-player experiences and then having a multiplayer component that you can monetize. You can monetize these multiplayer components. They might not be like full-blown live service, but people will support it. People will play it, and people will spend some money on it. I miss those days, man. I don't know that we're ever going to get them back, but Sony really should, I think, consider looking at that as a viable option, right? They might have to do that, frankly. If some of these live service games are just not coming together well, and they don't want to completely cancel them and eat the cost, they could maybe try to put, put them on transplant them, I guess you could say, onto maybe some single player games. Levy H is saying FTC documents leaked. They revealed how much Sony games cost to make. The Last of Us 2 was $220 million, not including marketing. I mean, I understand what you're saying. That is true. That is true. I'm like, look, all I'm trying to say is we don't know the exact number. Spider-Man could have cost, with marketing, more than $300 million when it's all said and done. I like, that wouldn't shock me. I'm not saying that number is off the mark. I'm just saying we don't know. We know about The Last of Us Part 2's numbers because it leaked. We know about Horizon Forbidden West. And we did have this conversation about, like, yes, there is an immense pressure on these games to not just perform, but perform exceptionally well. And I do understand why people are looking at 5 million copies sold in 10 days and asking, I think it's a fair question to ask, is that enough? Is that what Sony was expecting? But the harsh reality is Sony's not going to come out and say it didn't meet our expectations. They're going to say, hey, it sold 5 million in 10 days. Pretty good, right? I mean, yeah, it is good. Like, that's a lot of units sold, again, on a single platform. But something tells me that with a game like Spider-Man 2, Sony is ready to play the long game. You know what I mean? Where it's, okay, even if it did underperform in the first 2 weeks, let's follow it. Let's see where it lands in the next year. Because Spider-Man 2, more so than games like Horizon and maybe even God of War, it's Spider-Man. You know, it's one of the most popular superheroes in the world. It's likely going to continue to move units and sell consoles and sell copies throughout the remainder of the entire PS5 generation. Now, if it just suddenly hit a wall and it wasn't moving units and it wasn't selling well at all, that would be concerning. But we'll know. We'll know. Sony will give us sales updates eventually. But I just think with situations like this, people are very quick to jump to conclusions without, having all the context. And my recommendation is just take it for what it is. If you want to believe that 5 million units sold for Spider-Man 2, because that's what, $350 million in revenue, right? If the total budget was, including marketing, like $300 million, we don't know, but if it was, just playing devil's advocate here, that's $50 million in profit already. I don't know if that, I don't know if that's a great profit margin, but it's a start, So you're saying, yo, MBG, those people that got free memberships are hating on Spider-Man 2. Unfortunately, I can't. I wish I had more control over it, but YouTube does not allow me to determine who gets gifted a membership. What YouTube does is people who are most engaged with the channel and who watch the channel more often, those are the people that actually get memberships first. That's from YouTube directly. That's what they say. So, I'm not going to, if you get a membership gifted and you are hating on Spider-Man, as long as you're not being like ridiculous about it, just an opinion, not a problem. We welcome opposing opinions here, certainly. We have the Combo Clinic, a longtime member for 35 months. So the Combo Clinic, thank you so much for that support, buddy. You're saying if Sony gets marketing rights for GTA 6, I'd imagine that rumored PS5 Pro, even the regular PS and Slim, would fly off the shelves. Keep up the good work, man. Well, thank you so much for that. I'm in agreement. We did talk about this a bit yesterday. I am curious to see if Sony ends up securing the marketing rights, for the simple fact that if they did, yeah, dude, PS5s are going to soar. And, it's just the reality of it. GTA is clearly a very hyped up game. A lot of people are very excited for it. And if there's a bundle out there in the future where it's a PS5 console and just the GTA logo on it, or, a copy of GTA 6 sitting there, it's like, yeah, that thing is going to sell like crazy. No doubt about it. It's worth noting Sony did do a GTA 4, or not 4, sorry, a GTA 5 bundle with the PlayStation 4. I do also want to notice, or I want you guys to pay attention to this because I did notice that GTA 5 did come out for the PS5 and they never did a GTA 5 bundle for PS5. So I don't know. I don't know if Sony, maybe they'll try something different with GTA 6. Saying MBG you should stream on both YouTube and Twitch. I don't know if you're saying I should stream simultaneously. Is that even allowed? I think that's like against the terms of service. I don't think you can stream. Like, can you? Maybe you can. That sounds really stressful to me though. Like managing two like separate stream platforms during the same stream. I don't know about Twitch. I don't know. I get you're saying you can. Okay. I guess that makes sense. A multi-stream. I think I have seen a few people do that before. I don't know, man. What are the pros of Twitch versus YouTube? I thought YouTube, like I know with Twitch, one of the biggest differences is they have a revenue split of like 50-50 or something with their content creators. I know Twitch it's pretty much a streaming first platform though. So I don't know. I never really looked into Twitch too much. It's just a difficult thing to even consider because it's like, well, I built my audience here on YouTube. No skippable ads on Twitch. Oh, okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that. Corey, you're saying you've seen multi-streams a few times? I'll read your super chat, bud. Don't worry. I'm going to get to it. I'm just moving a little bit slowly here. I apologize. John loves Xbox. What a name. John loves Xbox. He says, do you still play Dead by Daylight? Thoughts on the Chucky killer? I still do play Dead by Daylight. I'm playing it less these days, but I still do play it. My thoughts on the Chucky killer, I mean, it's pretty cool, right? It's one of these things where they've added so many famous, well-known, like horror movie, or not just movie, but just, these characters from the media, these horror characters. I feel like Chucky was kind of a standout that was missing. And so I remember, you know what? It's funny. I remember there was a leak on I think the Gaming Leaks and Rumors subreddit a long time ago, like months ago, that said somebody like posted it where Chucky's coming, and nobody believed it. And it turns out it was true. So it's pretty cool. I want to see some gameplay of it though. But I appreciate the super chat, man. We have HN with a $2 super chat saying Mario Wonder sold 4.3 million. Spider-Man is doing fine. Yeah, I saw that as well. I mean, I are people panicking about that? Like are people panicking about the fact that the new Super Mario game sold 4.3 million? I mean, I'm genuinely asking. I haven't been paying. To me, that sounds fine. Like again, to me, that's another game that's probably going to go on to sell really well throughout the years. But yeah, that's how I think. You use the word fine. Spider-Man is doing fine. That's how I view it. I mean, I did think it was interesting that when Sony announced Spider-Man 2 sales, they announced like this is how much it sold in the first 24 hours. And I thought that, like, to me that was interesting because it did make me think, are they anticipating that it's not going to sell as well as quickly as God of War Ragnarok? Because the fact that, you know what I mean? Like they have to put out the stat now because if they wait, it's going to be void because it turns out God of War actually outpaced it in the same amount of time. But God of War was also available on the PS4. And you do have to ask yourself this question, truthfully. You have to ask yourself this question. If Spider-Man 2 released on PS4, what would the numbers look like right now? Could we bump up the 5 million to 6 million? Possibly 7 million. I mean, that's kind of the risk here, right? Where Sony has conditioned a lot of PS4 players to expect cross-gen games, cross-gen exclusives. And now this is really like the big first push with Sony's first party where it's like PS5 only. So, I'd say it's doing just fine as well. Michael Lynch with a $5 super chat. Appreciate that, buddy. You're saying, oh, here we go. So I guess this is in reference to what we talked about at the end of the stream yesterday, talking about Frasier. You're saying David Hyde Pierce actually decided himself that he wasn't interested in repeating the Niles performance. Also, Roz is supposed to make an appearance. Well, thank you for that update. I didn't know about that. That makes me very sad, man. That does. Because, again, I was just even watching Frasier last night. I'm like, man, Kelsey Grammer and David Hyde Pierce as Frasier and Niles, they are perfect. I mean, absolutely perfect. But, I understand that. It's been so many years, that's just, I guess, kind of the thing with some people is they're like, look, that was a time and place. I've moved on since then, and I'm not interested. So I can respect it. But, man, I hope one day he's able to make like a cameo or something. But Michael, thank you. Thank you for giving me that very critical update. Appreciate the super chat, buddy. And we have Beezer1138 who says, did you see the new God of War Ragnarok blooper video? Actually, I saw it uploaded. I didn't watch it. Maybe we can play it here at the end of the stream. I think it's like 3 minutes long or something. So maybe we can watch that. I'll have to check it out. I like that they do that. It's pretty funny. You're saying the blooper video is incredible? Yeah, we'll have to check that out. And we have a Dark Horse with a $5 super chat who says, I think the reason why people are more worried that Spider-Man did not sell as good as God of War Ragnarok is because Spider-Man is the bigger IP. Yeah, I will say this. Regardless of, the 5 million sold, or sorry, not the 5 million sold, the expectation beyond that 5 million, whatever it may have been, I will say that Ragnarok did seemingly sell better in the first week. And that is surprising to me. I'm not saying that means Spider-Man is doing poorly. It's, if anything, it just shows how good Ragnarok actually performed. Where, I expected God of War to sell well, right? I expected it to be a game that performs well, but even I was surprised. I was like 5.1 million in the first 5 days. That's crazy good. And then I remember 3 months later, they said 11 million. Like, that's also crazy good. And I'm curious to see if we get another sales milestone update for God of War anytime soon. But yes, it did release on, I know, it was on PS4, but it is true. We do have to acknowledge that Spider-Man versus God of War, in terms of brand name, there's something to be said for that. I do. I think there's something to be said for that, where Spider-Man is significantly more popular and well-known than God of War. So again, I'm not saying it means Spider-Man's doing bad per se. I'm just saying, if anything, it goes to show. It just looks like God of War has really reached a new level of popularity, truthfully. But it's a good question to ask. I think it's fair. I don't think people should worry necessarily. I don't think it's worth worrying about, because if Spider-Man 2 ultimately does underperform, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I'm not going to sweat that. You know why? Because if anything, I don't think it would indicate people are less interested in single player games. I just think it would mean that, okay, well, look, maybe people are a little bit fatigued on Spider-Man right now. We got Spider-Man 2018. We very quickly got Miles Morales. And then not too long after, we got Spider-Man 2. Maybe people are going to, if anything, people are going to be very eager for something like Wolverine. But even beyond Wolverine, I think, if anything, it's going to make people even more eager for brand new games. Give me 1 sec here. I saw... Okay. Sorry, just wanted to get that sorted out. But Dark Horse, I think it's understandable. think why some people would be a little bit worried. But I think generally speaking, it's not a big deal. It's not. If the message is sent to Sony that people are getting a little bit fatigued on Spider-Man, maybe it just means people are ready for something new. And I don't see a problem with that at all. You're saying MBGM curious why Remedy has not mentioned any sales data with Alan Wake 2 unless it underperformed. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if they're going to mention anything. Listen, the AAA space, single player space right now is tough. It is. It's unfortunate, but it's just the way the industry is right now. Your game has to do well. It does. It's not good enough anymore to have a budget of $180 million and sell 1 million or 1.5 million copies of a game. I mean, it has to be more than that, truthfully. We have the cheek clapper with a $2 super chat saying, question is, who is daddy, Kratos or Spider-Man? I think that's obvious. Come on, man. Do I really have to answer that? It's Kratos. It's obviously Kratos, bro. but that's the real question we got to ask. I appreciate it, cheek clapper. We also have Mr. No saying, not surprising as people have less money in this economy. Yeah, that is another factor we probably should consider realistically as well, is the fact that Spider-Man 2 is a PS5 only exclusive. It is asking people, not asking, it's basically demanding that if you want to play this game, you are going to have to spend $500 on the PS5, and $70 on the game, or buy the bundle. Yeah, that probably does play some type of role here. I have no doubt about that. I think it's easy to, I think sometimes as we get deeper into the weeds of these conversations, to forget that reality is, it is the reality right now. But yeah, we'll have to see, man. We'll have to see what happens economically speaking going into 2024. But thank you so much for the super chats, guys. So here we go. I'm going to read this report here from VGC. It says Sony's gaming division has reported a record second quarter in terms of revenue, as PlayStation 5 consoles reached 46.5 million shipped. The company's game and network services division reported for fiscal year 23 quarter two revenue of $6.32 billion, which is up 32% year over year. However, operating profit was more modest at $324 million, which is up 16% year over year, but below fiscal year 21 and fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 19. So this is a pretty significant thing to point out here, is people are going to gravitate towards, Sony had a record quarter in terms of revenue, up 32% year over year. This is good because they're driving revenue. But the thing that is maybe a little bit more questionable is the profitability, operating profit. We do have to understand that at the end of the day, operating profit is way more important and critical to the business than sheer revenue. They're both very important, but the profit is, again, that's kind of the be-all, end-all, truthfully. And the operating profit, so they made $6.32 billion. They made a profit of $324 million. So you can see where, there's this need and this desire to up that number, where you want to continue to make $6 billion plus in revenue, but you want to also certainly make more than $324 million in profit when you're making that type of revenue. That's really the true challenge that Sony and the PlayStation business has right now, is how do you make the gaming division more profitable? That's a tough question to answer. Again, this is why it's going to be tough for them to find a new CEO, because they're going to need to find somebody who has an answer to that question, who has a strategy that can, solve that problem. I also wanted to point out, it says the profit margin here of $324 million is up 16% year over year. So it's up 16% from last year, but it's also down from 2021, 2020, and 2019. So yeah, it's not looking too great there. That's going to be their primary focus. Before I continue, I see I have a super chat from Venino, which I appreciate, buddy. You're saying, "What's up, MBG? I'm just wondering if the free copy of the bundles count. Mario doesn't cost a lot to make. I told you profits are down even with 46 million consoles. Spider-Man 2 is fire." Yeah, that's the thing is Sony is in a very good place when it comes to their consoles being sold, when it comes to their revenue, setting records, but it really truly is the profitability that's the question mark here. And that is important to pay attention to, because that is what's going to make the shareholders kind of raise their eyebrows and be like, I don't know, Sony, were you making the right decisions here? But I do believe, I'm not 100% sure about this, but I do believe that the Spider-Man 2 unit sold number does count the bundles. I'm pretty sure it counts the bundles. I think every time we've gotten numbers from Sony in regards to how many units of their games they've sold, I think it's always counted the bundles. So somebody can correct me if I'm wrong about that, but you're saying this is why Sony is nickel and diming us. I mean, it is. Truth be told, it is. I'm not saying we have to be okay with that, but it's like when people wonder, like, why did Sony increase the price of the digital console by $50? Why are they selling the stand separately for $30? Why did they increase the price for the yearly subscriptions of Extra and Premium and Essential? This is why. Because they're trying to find any way they can to raise those profit margins. And I'm not necessarily saying I'm advocating for that. It's just that I'm saying I understand, as a multi-billion-dollar corporation who is the market leader in console gaming, and they have a major competitor in Microsoft that's making these crazy moves. I understand the pressure they're feeling. I do, and I can understand why they're making some of the decisions they are. But, look, I think at this point, something that may be becoming clear is Sony needs to find a clearer path forward, because the path that they're on now is seemingly not too clear. I mean, you see people all the time, and I'm one of these people as well, where it's like Sony needs to just quit with the live service stuff. They need to quit nickel and diming, and they just need to focus on what they do best, which is their single player games. They need to double, triple, even quadruple down on that. I would love that. I would. I mean, to me, that is the ideal PlayStation. That is what PlayStation is to me. But it's difficult as somebody who looks around at the entire gaming industry and looks at the bigger picture and sees the ways in which the industry is changing from top to bottom. It feels almost frankly, it feels a little bit ignorant of me to just simply say, Sony, just make single player games, don't do anything else, you'll be fine. Well, what about the growing cost of games? I don't know, just make them better, sell more copies. Well, what about our profit margins and the fact that shareholders are going to start panicking if we can't up our profit margins? Yeah, that's not my problem, Sony. And that's the truth. It is not my problem. I'm not a Sony shareholder. I do not work for Sony. But I can understand why, just because it's not my problem doesn't mean it isn't their problem. It is absolutely their problem. And they have to figure out what they're going to do, man. It's not as doom and gloom as people make it sound. It's not like they're in some kind of free fall and they're tumbling their way down to the bottom. It's not like that. It is our problem to the extent that this is definitely going to affect and impact the PlayStation consumer and the PlayStation player. So to that extent, I just mean when it comes to like Sony, I don't care about your profit margins. Like, I'm not saying when you make a purchase, a PlayStation purchase, you should do so with the mentality like, I'm helping Sony's profit margins. Like, no, that's a little bit ridiculous. But I think it is important to try to understand that as a consumer, if you really do like PlayStation and you like certain things they do, it is important that you do put your money towards those things. You know, it is. And I'm not saying you alone putting your money towards those things will save it or keep it the way it is, but it's pretty much realistically the only thing you can do. So thank you for that. We also have Angry Whale Watcher, member for 6 months, saying, me, recoils at games as a service. Also me, put 700 plus hours into Monster Hunter World. Bought stuff in Fall Guys, looking forward to Foam Stars and hoping for a Twisted Metal revival. You know what, Angry Whale Watcher? I think what you're describing here is the need for some kind of balance from Sony. I do think that's what you're pointing to here, because the idea that you are recoiling or having a negative reaction to Sony's pursuit of games as a service, I don't blame anybody. And as we're going to talk about very shortly here, 12 live service games in just a couple years. 12. Are you kidding me? 12? Yeah, that's going to make anybody recoil. Like, what the hell? Because being against Sony going all in with 12, I know it's reduced now, but that was the initial target, 12, right? Sony making that decision, that doesn't mean you have, like, being against that decision doesn't mean you have to hate live service games. It just means, Sony, you might be going overboard here. That's what I think it means. Because, yeah, dude, Monster Hunter World, great game. People love it. Fall Guys, talking about Foam Stars, Twisted Metal. Twisted Metal comes back. It will likely come in the form of a live service game. Absolutely. Piper with a $5 super chat. Appreciate it, buddy. You're saying caring too much about sales, too much is a toxic mentality. I do agree with that. I don't think we should base our enjoyment off of sales. Certainly not. But that's the thing, is I think I speak for pretty much everybody here when I say, once we leave this conversation, like once I turn this stream off and once you guys leave YouTube or leave this stream in particular, when you go to sit down and play a video game, I don't think you're sitting there being like, I don't know if I can enjoy this because what if Sony isn't making enough sales? You know what I'm saying? And that's where I think people need to just realize that it's okay. It's okay to talk about sales and numbers and gaming. It's fine. You know, there are a lot of people out there who try to paint this picture that if you even think about game sales, right, and if you care at all, you're not a real gamer. You're not. It's like, listen, man, the gaming industry is multifaceted. There are many different aspects that make the gaming industry what it is. Sales is just one part of that, but it's also a relatively important part as well. So, yeah, nothing wrong with it. It can become toxic, though, certainly. But I would say that can also be said about all things, right? I see another thing happened here with a member chat where it seemed to have come through blank. I'm not sure what's up with that. But let me continue reading this article for you guys. It says the 4.9 million PS5 consoles shipped in the 3 months ending on September 30th reportedly represents a record for a PlayStation console during a Q2 window. It also represents a significant 48% increase compared to the same quarter last year. Sony Interactive Entertainment has a lofty sales target of 25 million PS5s for the year ending March 2024, and it said it intends to do so with offers during the holiday season and revised PS5 hardware. In the first half of the fiscal year, the company has shipped 8.2 million consoles. Speaking during a call to discuss its result, Sony president, COO, and CFO Hiroki Totoki said the company would keep the target despite it seeming difficult to obtain. It's not something we can attain very easily, but we think that the year-end sales are the most important period, and during the season we have a new model and Spider-Man 2, so we want to keep our target, he said. Continues by saying Sony's network services revenue, which encompasses PS Plus and advertising revenue, reached its highest level since last year's service revamp at it says 1.33.8 billion yen. I don't know. We know what that converts to US dollars, likely influenced by the more expensive subscription tiers. So we can see that, again, you see why Sony did what they did. they're reporting, higher revenue overall. Its highest revenue since last year, with this PS Plus price increase. Again, they're not revealing numbers anymore, so it is what it is. They say here the PlayStation Network monthly active users, or MAUs, were up 5 million year over year to 107 million. Sony says its MAU are the estimated total number of unique accounts that played games or used services on the PlayStation Network during the last month of the quarter. Software sales for PS4 and PS5 increased 5.1 million year over year to 67.6 million units. Digital software accounted for 67% of quarterly game sales compared to 63% last year. Tokyo-based industry consultant Dr. Sirkin Toto told VGC, quote, Q2 was very good for PlayStation 5, but we all know this was supported by price reductions in certain key markets. The company probably was overly ambitious with its 25 million target for 25 million sales and is now under pressure to deliver 2 more record quarters to get there, end quote. So very interesting analysis here, where this industry analyst believes that Sony may have bit off more than they could chew here, and they're gonna make changes that they like. It seems basically like the most important thing for Sony right now is to hit that 25 million target to keep shareholders feeling good, and that's my assumption there. But we'll see, man. We'll see if Sony really starts to make some dramatic price cuts or something. Then that might be a sign that they might not be doing. They might not be selling as quickly as they thought. So just wanted to give you guys the rundown of the numbers there. But now we are going to move on to what I think is the most important thing to talk about today. I have an article here from Push Square. Sony delays 6 live service PS5 games, but the company remains committed to the model. So this is where the conversation gets very interesting, where they're delaying all these games, but they're saying they remain committed. I have a theory on this. Sony's slashed its live service plans, announcing that 6 of its 12 in-production projects will not release by March 2026, as previously planned. The platform holder was plotting to launch a dozen or so titles by the end of its 2025 fiscal year, but in its earnings call, Sony bigwig Hiroki Totoki confirmed that it has since scaled back its ambitions. We are trying as much as possible to ensure that these games are enjoyed and liked by gamers for a long time, he explained. Of the 12 titles, 6 titles will be released by fiscal year 2025. That's our current plan. As for the remaining 6 titles, we're still working on that. That's the total number of live service and multiplayer titles, and mid to long term, we want to push this kind of service, and that's the unchanged policy of the company. It's not like we stick to certain titles, but game quality should be the most important. So there's a lot to unpack with what Mr. Totoki is saying here. It is true that he is not saying we're done with live service. And I think that's what a lot of people are assuming right now, understandably so. They're assuming that, if they delayed half of their live service games, clearly it's not working out very well. They're backing off of their live service. It seems to me they're doing the smart thing. Like, maybe a lot of people would say the smartest thing Sony could do right now is cancel these games. Just stop it. Stop pursuing live service. Just nix it, right? I understand that mentality, but I don't think that would be the wisest thing for them to do, because you have to keep in mind that they've invested a lot of time, money, and effort into these games. I don't think it would be ideal to hear an announcement from Sony that they've canceled 12 games under any circumstance. That would be horrific, frankly, and I don't think that they would survive that. So no matter what, they have to do something with at least a chunk of these games. Ideally, all of them, but at least a chunk of them. I wouldn't be shocked if some of them do get canceled at some point, but they are making, I think, the wisest decision they can in the moment, which is what they're clearly communicating. And I want to point to this specific wording right here. The game quality should be the most important. And then earlier he says, we're trying as much as possible to ensure these games are enjoyed and liked by gamers for a long time. So what we can gather from this is that at least half of these live service games are not what Sony would consider quality. And they fear that gamers will not enjoy them. Certainly not for a long period of time. It also tells us that the other 6 seemingly meet this criteria. And maybe, I don't know, maybe this is how it was always going to go, where you make 12 games, maybe only half of them make it through the quality check filter. So the question then becomes, which games has Sony considered to be good enough? These 6 titles. Well, one of them is Concord. Concord's coming next year. Another one is Fair Games. What else? I think The Last of Us multiplayer is likely not one of those games, unfortunately. Helldivers 2, yeah, that's coming very, very soon. Marathon, I don't know. I'm not counting Marathon because I think that got delayed. Right? Well, I guess if it comes out by 2025, that would count, maybe. The Horizon multiplayer game, that could be one of them. MLB The Show, that's definitely one of them. But it makes you question, what about the other live service games, right? Shelly, I hear you. Was GT7 one of those 6 games that we're getting before the end of fiscal year 26 or 25 or whatever? I think so. All right, well, let me think about it. We got, if we count GT7, that's 1. We count MLB The Show, that's 2. Helldivers is 3. Concord is 4. I don't know about Fair Games, because the thing about Fair Games is we never got confirmation that Fair Games was coming out next year, or we never got a release window for it. So it could have been delayed internally. I mean, I guess we could count Fair Games simply for the fact that it showed up at the showcase last year. So that would be 5. Would number 6, I guess it would be Marathon. Yeah, I guess number 6 would be Marathon. So I guess those are the games. So that means the Horizon game may have gotten delayed. The Sony London game got delayed. The Twisted Metal game got delayed. The Last of Us multiplayer. If Sucker Punch is working on a multiplayer game, Insomniac's working on a multiplayer game. I mean, I don't know, man. Maybe this is where Jim Ryan really did mess up the most, where for some reason, maybe, I don't know, Jim Ryan thought that, yeah, we could just get our studios to make 12 games in just the next 4 years or something. I don't know. Maybe it was just too tall of an order. I think no matter what, that's way too tall of an order. But yeah, Jim was drunk. The 6 games that got delayed are the ones we care about. You know, I think I just realized something. Oh, you know what? I think I just figured it out. Probably should have came to this conclusion earlier. It seems to me like the games that got delayed are the ones that come from the studios that are known for single player games. Like you said, like the ones that we care about. Interesting. This is coming not too long after the reports that apparently Sony's internal studios were not very happy or, not too thrilled about having to work on live service games. So maybe that's what this boils down to. Maybe Sony kind of just created a divide where, Polyphony Digital's an internal studio, but GT was always going to be a live service game. That's not a problem. You think about Concord, that's Firewalk Games. That's a new studio. They've never made a single player game. Haven, same thing. Helldivers 2, That's a partner studio. Marathon, that's from Bungie. So yeah, obviously that was going to be a multiplayer experience. Yeah, this could be a good thing. Fire Sprite is the question mark. I don't know what's going on with Fire Sprite. I have another theory with this. Because here's the big implication here, right? The big implication with what Hiroki Totoki is saying is that, well, we're delaying these games, but it's in the name of quality, right? So they're not canceling them, but they're delaying them to up the quality and make sure the quality is as high as it can be. I have this theory where they are going to cancel many of these games, but they're going to do so very discreetly. That's what I think. I think Sony is going to push out these 6 games that they invested in. Like yes, you literally bought Haven and Firewalk. You're going to release their games. You're going to recoup that cost. You can't just cancel their games. You cancel their games, you shut their studio down. That's how it goes. You're not going to do that. You're not going to shut down Bungie. If Bungie dies, that's going to be Bungie's fault. But you want to try to get as much out of this as you can. GT7 again, MLB The Show again. You got that. I'm thinking these games are going to be discreetly canceled in the coming years, and Sony is very much hoping that maybe some of these games can end up being. I don't know if Firewalk's Concord is going to be like the next, Destiny or Call of Duty or anything like that. But hopefully they're not dumpster fires, right? Hopefully they're not dumpster fires. You're saying basically they're lying to investors? No, I don't think it's a lie per se. I think that it's more along the lines of, well, I want to mention this as well. You have to understand that the wording is very specific. Hiroki Totoki says, quote, "That's the total number of live service and multiplayer titles." So Hiroki Totoki creates a distinction between a live service game and a multiplayer title. This to me is important, and this is significant, because this could indicate that, okay, we're not going to task our main internal studios with making live service games. So we're like canceling the live service aspect, but we're going to allow them to, for example, like The Last of Us multiplayer. We have to ask ourselves, why wasn't it canceled? Because it's like, well, it's not going to be live service. The person who was in charge of live service monetization left, right? But maybe but Naughty Dog can definitely put this in the next Last of Us game as the multiplayer experience. It's just not live service. Same thing with Ghost of Tsushima too, right? Do what you did with Ghost of Tsushima Legends. Do a second part to that. Maybe Horizon. Maybe instead of doing a dedicated live service Horizon game, just take what you did, change the art style if it's possible, and put that as sweeten the deal for Horizon 3. You buy Horizon 3, you get the full single player experience, but you also get the multiplayer component as well. So I guess what I mean to say is, rather than maybe using the word cancel, like canceling these games, maybe that's the wrong way to word it. Maybe it's instead canceling the live service part of it. And this is Hiroki Totoki's very, I don't want to say, not a clever way, but just because he's being blunt, he's saying live service and multiplayer. To me, what I'm walking away from here is this. We're dividing these 12 multiplayer experiences in half. One half is the live service. The other half is just what we would call multiplayer. And that's it, right? The 6 games that we're going to release, they're going to be the live service ones. They're the ones that are ready to go. The other 6, they're going to be multiplayer experiences that are that ship with our bigger single player experiences, and hopefully we can further monetize them. That's what I'm thinking this is basically turning into. Michael Meridian, I'm sorry, man, I missed your chat here. You're saying, is the Bungie Studio purchase figuring into this? Well, I want to go a little bit further here. Okay, I want to go a little bit further down the rabbit hole. There's something else I want to let you guys know about. I need to find the quote. Give me just a second here. I know it's here somewhere. Where is it? Why can't I find it? I thought I had... give me a second, guys. I had it up. Here we go. Okay. Sony President, CFO, and COO Hiroki Totoki, when asked about acquisitions going forward, this is exactly what he said. Quote, "We will discuss and show our third mid-range plan at the end of fiscal year 23 regarding acquisitions and mergers." End quote. Now, this is important because he's obviously not saying anything. He's not saying he's not giving us any update other than we'll talk about it. So for those who want to know the date in which he's referring to here, April 1st next year. April 1st, 2024, Sony's going to reveal their plan for acquisitions going forward. Here's my theory. I think what Sony is doing here, like based off of all of this information, everything I'm hearing about Sony's plans with their live service and their multiplayer, Jim Ryan's gone. All of this internal restructuring has occurred. And now Sony's saying we will update you on our plans regarding acquisitions, after the first quarter of next year. Basically, at the start of the new fiscal year, the day Jim Ryan leaves is the day that Sony gives their update on acquisitions and mergers. This seems like it might be pretty important. You're saying MBG, they also cut the M&A budget for gaming by 20%. I didn't see that. That actually seems pretty significant, actually. I'm going to take your word on that. I didn't see that anywhere. All right, so that actually, if that's, I need to find out if that's true or not. Because that might change my theory. Homie's tightening the belt. Yeah, he is. He is. That's true as well. They also did just finish paying off their Bungie acquisition. Here's what I think. So basically at this point in time, I have two theories. And I'm leaning more towards one than the other about what's going to happen with PlayStation in the next year and a half. Theory number one is less likely, but still a possibility. And it's especially less likely now that you mentioned apparently he cut the M&A by 20%. Theory number one is they have completely pivoted away from live service as their future. They are going to do what they have to do and release some of these games and release what they can because they've invested too much into it. They can't do anything about the Bungie acquisition. It's done. They just have to try to help support Bungie and keep them profitable and try to stop Bungie from potentially destroying themselves. Um, and I think what they're, again, this is the less likely option. I think what they're preparing to do is look to make a major publisher acquisition. And they're hoping that if they can secure a major publisher acquisition, this is essentially going to make up for everything, right? Like if they get a big publisher that is considered successful, which is a difficult, again, I don't know that that's going to be a possibility, because if they're successful, they're probably not going to want to sell, right? If they're a successful publisher, they're probably not going to want to sell. But if they can secure a relatively successful publisher, it's going to basically undo most of the damage that was potentially done by Jim Ryan's live service dream. You know, again, it won't change the fact that they invested a bunch of time and money into live service, but depending on who they get, it'll make up for lost time. Certainly. That's the first theory I have. So essentially, theory number one, Sony pivots away from live service and pivots towards major acquisitions. Not studio acquisitions. I'm talking like, a big one. That's theory number one. Again, I think that one's less likely. Theory number two is the first part of my theory is the same, where Sony is still pivoting away from live service, and it's clear that this was a big mistake. I'll be honest with you, I think it's obvious. Maybe I'll end up being wrong here, but I think it's obvious that Sony is regretting letting Jim Ryan lead them into this live service future. I think that's obvious. I could be wrong about that, but that's my read on it. Theory number two is they still pivot away from live service, but they're not pivoting towards acquisitions. Instead, they're pivoting towards efficiency, towards maybe not necessarily scale, maybe the opposite, maybe scaling down in some ways. Maybe, again, focusing on cutting costs, trying to be profitable, not overspending. I think this is, they must pivot around the showcase. I agree with that 100%. But I think this is the more likely scenario, because I just don't imagine Sony is in a rush to make another acquisition after what happened with Bungie. I just don't think they're in a rush to go spend billions more dollars. I think they're looking to do the opposite. I think they're looking to save billions of dollars and try to make money back, right? Or again, become more profitable. I do think that is their goal. Especially as Hiroki Totoki being the interim CEO. It's worth noting, Hiroki Totoki did say that he is going to be the interim CEO for 1 year at maximum. 1 year. And he also said that his goal and his main focus in that year is to find a new CEO. Listen to me. That right there tells you what you need to know about the current state of Sony. All right. Sony doesn't know what they're going to do. And I know that there are some people who don't want to hear that, because Sony's doing good, man. They're fine. Look, when I say Sony doesn't know what they're going to do, that doesn't mean they're free falling. I want to make that abundantly clear. Sony not knowing what they're going to do doesn't mean they're in trouble. It just means that there's a core aspect of their business that they need to figure out. And it is on a timer, because they have to figure it out. So what I think is going to happen in the next year and a half for PlayStation is Sony's going to lean on their partner studios and the exclusives that they've partnered with, and any studios that have games ready to release in the next year and a half, which, again, that could be Insomniac's Wolverine. It could be, I'm trying to think of games that could actually be ready to release. Could be Blue Point's game. Maybe Blue Point's game is nearing completion. If not, Just, there has to be more than one studio underneath Sony that's going to have a game ready to go in the next year and a half. There's just no way. I mean, we will get these live service games like Concord, and maybe those will end up being really good, but I think Sony's just going to heavily lean on their partners and the studios that are going to be ready to go. And really what they're going to be doing behind the scenes is scrambling to find someone that is going to be able to come in and say, I know where we're going. This is this is where the future of PlayStation and your gaming division lies. I'm going to lead it. Because Hiroki Totoki, what he just said, when he says, I'm only going to be interim CEO for a year, and my only goal is to find a new CEO, he doesn't know. I can't blame the guy. He's the freak. I mean, God, I don't even know how this guy's going to be an interim CEO. He already has so much responsibility at Sony. He's the COO, the CFO, the president. I mean, God, how is he going to even? What's going to happen? So I basically think that PlayStation is going to be leaderless for a little while. They're not going to have a direction. They're not going to have a long-term play. And I think what they're going to have to do is just rely on, again, tightening the belt, cutting costs, making sure they're not making any... They're going to make very conservative decisions, is what I'm trying to say, until they figure out the next step. And the next step is getting that new CEO in the door. Dark Horse, you're saying, so they're going to not one, but 2 rough years for games. Well, here's the thing. Sony not knowing what they're going to do in the long term doesn't mean that the next year or 2 is going to be bad for them in terms of game output. We do have to separate. It could be. Like, again, man, beyond... I've continued to say, beyond February of next year, we have no fucking idea. We have no clue what Sony's lineup in terms of games looks like. We have not an inkling. No release dates, no release windows, nothing. What I think Sony needs to do to keep players and fans and gamers happy while they're in this process behind the scenes of finding new leadership, they need to have a strong fucking showcase. Period. That's it. That is a must. They should very much care about next year, April, May, June, whenever they want to do the showcase. When they do it, you have to have a good showcase. Not all the games you show at that showcase have to release this year or even in the next year and a half. They can be 2-3 years away, but it has to fucking be good. You have to get fans excited. You have to get them feeling good about the brand, right? About the games. And you need to shift the focus, because right now, this is the focus. Spider-Man 2's out. February's still a little while, a little ways away from now. Right now, this is the focus, is this, here are the sales numbers. Here's our business, right? Mark Cerny is CEO? I don't think so. I mean, I'll tell you right now, I care very much about what Sony's going to do for their showcase next year, because it's just a shame the way their showcase went down. And I think that they need to come out strong to reinforce confidence. They do. They need to reinforce confidence, and they have to, more than anything, I think that they have to show some solid single-player first-party games. Dude, Capono, I'll tell you right now, that would be fucking wild. I refuse to accept, I refuse to believe that until I see it. You're saying they might go another year and a half without one? No, dude. Listen to me. I'll tell you this. Sony could get away with that in 2022. All right. Sony could get away without having a showcase in 2022 because, hey, you got Horizon Forbidden West, you got GT7, you got God of War Ragnarok. It's a strong fucking year of game releases. And you have some state of plays, some partner games. You get away with it. Maybe you can even get away with having a bad showcase in 2023. Barely get away with it. Sony can't, dude. Their back is against the wall next year in the sense that you want people to buy your console. You want people to stay on your platform. Well, show the goods. Show us the reasons why we should. Because I'll tell you what, Nintendo's got plans next year. Oh, Nintendo definitely has plans next year. You know who else has plans next year? Microsoft. Microsoft has some big plans for 2024. What about you, Sony? What are your plans for 2024? How's it looking? I hope it's looking good. Again, I hope that they saved some shit in their back pocket just in case this happened. Just in case it turns out our bet on live service isn't working the way we thought. So, does having a strong third-party lineup mean anything? It does. It definitely does. But in a year like 2024, where your competition is going to be on fire, mainly with Nintendo and the Switch 2, and again, Microsoft. Dude, Microsoft, I'll tell you right now, man, they are planning a lot for next year. They are. Sony's going to have so much to contend with. You want to talk about competition, dude? Next year, Sony's going to face the most intense wave of competition they've ever seen. Ever. I mean, think about that. In the history of PlayStation, next year is going to be the most intense wave of competition they've ever experienced. I'm telling you, they have to have some shit lined up. There's no way. Because if they don't, I don't want to be dramatic about it. If Sony basically finds themselves in a position next June where we don't have anything ready to show, you're in fucking trouble. You are in deep shit at that point. Your sales are going to start dropping. And they're going to start dropping because your competition is fucking coming out swinging, bro. But I don't think that's going to be the case. See, here's what I want to do now. I'm looking at a list of all the PlayStation studios. And when I look at this list, I have to imagine at least some of these studios have to be ready next year. Not to release games, but again, Sony doesn't have to release a fuck ton of games next year to keep people engaged and excited. But they have to show games. Hopefully, I mean, they have to have some game releases, but they have to show games. So check this out. Ben Studio. I mean, Ben Studio has been working on a new IP since 2020. You're going to tell me they won't have a trailer ready to show? They won't be ready to show their game nearly 4 years into its development? So I think next year we could definitely see Ben's game. Bluepoint. Bluepoint's also been working on another project since 2020. They should be ready to go. I mean, ready to show. Not release, but ready to show. Firesprite. Sony acquired Firesprite in 2021. They've had like 2 or 3 projects being worked on for multiple years now. I want to believe they at least have one of those projects at least ready to show, right? Guerrilla Games. I don't know about Guerrilla. I mean, maybe they'll be ready to show their multiplayer. Maybe they'll be ready to show their first small little teaser for Horizon 3. I don't know. Haven Studios. I mean, fuck. We better see some gameplay next year of Fair Games. right? We better see some gameplay of fair games. Housemarque. Housemarque, I think it's totally fine if we don't see anything from them next year. You know, they completed Returnal, and it was a new IP, and they're working on another new IP. So if they need more time, I think that's fine. We shouldn't rush Housemarque. I don't think any of these studios should be rushed, by the way. I just think, you know, we're looking at timetables here. Sean, I'm going to read your super chat in just a moment here. We got Insomniac Games. I mean, there's every chance we'll see Wolverine next year. London Studio, they're working on a new IP, a new live service game. Maybe we'll see it. I doubt it. Media Molecule, I don't expect to hear from them anytime soon. Naughty Dog, I mean, I hate to say this, but I think the only thing we're going to hear from Naughty Dog next year is The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, which sucks. But I think that's all we're going to get from Naughty Dog in the near future. Polyphony Digital, don't need to hear from them. San Diego, MLB The Show. Santa Monica Studio, they've been working on a new game. Apparently they have a God of War like DLC in the works. Sucker Punch, Ghost of Tsushima 2, right? Team Asobi, a new Astro game. Look, I'm not saying I expect to hear from all of these studios. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying we need to hear from some of them next year. We fucking do. Sony cannot go another year without letting these teams talk. Period. End of discussion. Like, I understand you need a new CEO, you need a new vision and a long-term play. I understand that. That's going to take time. Don't rush that. But you got to show your core fans something. This year's showcase was a disaster as far as I'm concerned. They have to have a complete turnaround next year with their new showcase. Sean Mitchell, thank you for the super chat, buddy. You're saying MBG, the Game Awards Twitter page, acknowledged Death Stranding's 4-year anniversary yesterday with Kojima retweeting it. Do you reckon they will show more Death Stranding 2 at the Game Awards? Yes. Yes, I do. I absolutely believe we're going to see more Death Stranding 2. And I think, again, this is where Sony doesn't have to have 3 games ready to release next year from their studios if they're not ready. They need 1 at least. They have to have 1. But if they can have Death Stranding 2 ready to go by next year, well, boom. You got Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right out the gate. If you close the year with Death Stranding 2, fuck it, man. Just, I don't know, maybe throw Concord in there. I would like to believe there have to be more than Concord, but yeah, Concord is the only one we know. That's what's scaring me about next year. But yeah, Death Stranding 2, I think will absolutely show up at the Game Awards. Kojima and Jeff are very good friends. So I have no doubt about that. But my question is, number 1, what's the gameplay of Death Stranding going to look like? Death Stranding 2. Number 2, is it going to target 2024 for release? Marathon apparently got delayed to 2025. So Sony can afford to lean on their partners next year. I do believe. But Ghost of Tsushima or Blue Point for 2024. I don't think Ghost will be ready. I think Ghost will be ready to be revealed, but I don't think Ghost will come out until 2025 or 26. Blue Point, I think Blue Point's going to need more time because they're not working on a remake. So I think their game's probably going to be 25 or 26 as well. But yeah, Sean, I'm looking for, that's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to the Game Awards, is because I think the Game Awards is going to have some awesome announcements this year. And I do think that Death Stranding 2 will be one of those announcements. Maybe a gameplay trailer. That would be nice. We have here Dark Horse with a super chat saying, "This is the reason I'm an advocate for AA games." Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't know. I don't know that I would say I'm an advocate for AA games as much as I would say I would be okay with, again, Sony kind of, I guess maybe I would be okay with AAA games kind of going back, regressing a little bit, as bad as that may sound. I think it sounds worse than it is. But what I mean is, like, make a 12 to 15 hour experience, right? Graphically do what you can, but it's, I don't know, like, I would be okay if the graphics weren't like bleeding edge, I mean, just like cutting edge, like, whoa. I feel like some of their games have to keep, like, for example, like Ghost of Tsushima 2. I'm okay with Ghost of Tsushima 2 taking as much time as it needs because I would like to see what they can do in the graphics department. Absolutely. Because that's like a game. I mean, it's going to be, the idea of Ghost of Tsushima 2 being one of the most beautiful games ever made, I'm fine with that. Yeah, that's true. That's true. RoboCop looks really good, and that is a AA game. So I guess I'm just saying, like, whatever it is that's causing these games to really balloon, it's okay. Let a little bit of the air out. It's fine. That's so I'm telling you, I think PlayStation fans would be okay with that. I know we'd be okay with that. Because if it meant like we can get more games more like when I say more frequently, I just mean like this game isn't going to take 6 or 7 years to make. Maybe it's going to take 4 years. I'd take that. I would take that. Even 5 years, right? Still a long time. I don't know. It's really tough to evaluate this because I'm not involved with video game development, so I don't know. It's probably not nearly as simple as I'm making it sound. But I hear you, Dark Horse. We have the Falling Star saying, why did Sony believe in Jim Ryan's live service push? Because I think, as I said, I think Jim Ryan's live service push on paper sounds great, right? It's like, here's the money that these successful live service games are making on PS5. We're only getting 30% of that. We have all of these studios. We could acquire some studios and we could push to try to make 12 games. And out of those 12 games, maybe even if even just one of those games succeeds, we'll have 100% of that money. But I think where Sony messed up here is they just totally underestimated. Like, do you know how lucky you have to be? It's no offense to PlayStation Studios, because PlayStation Studios are some of the most talented teams in the world. But games as a service is a whole nother beast. It's not, it is quite literally the polar opposite of a single player narrative experience. I'm telling you, Sony dived in head first in shallow water here. That's what they did. And they're paying for it. They're literally paying for it. And it's because Jim told them that water ain't shallow. And they found out, man. They fucked around and they found out. Again, it's not all like doom and gloom, but it's just the reality of doing business, right? It's the reality of people said that they want Sony to take more risks. This was their risk. Whether we like it or not, this was Sony's risk. Let's make live service games. Let's like go all in. That's the part I don't understand. Truthfully, I don't understand how Jim convinced anybody at Sony to agree with going all in with live service. Like, I could understand going 1/3 the way in, halfway in maybe, but like going all in where it's like everything is going into this live service. I don't know. I don't understand that. I guess maybe they just felt like in order to, like, the more they invested in it, the higher the chance it would actually succeed. Whereas the lower, the less amount they invested, the higher the chance of failure. You're saying they didn't go in, they invested half. Well, okay, I guess you're right. I don't want to make it sound like they don't have any single player. Yeah, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but I think you understand what I mean. It's just this idea of it's like we're doing like the scale and the ambition. It just like doesn't match the reality of how these things are going to be handled. You know, Smurf for the win. I see you, man. I see. Yeah, I see. Oh man, these analogies though. These analogies. Whew. So I don't know. I don't. I don't mean. I know how I sound sometimes. I do. I know that I very much make things sound like maybe worse than they actually are. I don't think that this is the way I view this is it's like hearing about a storm coming. You know what I mean? Like you aren't experiencing the storm yet, but you are hearing it. It's on its way. And you have a certain amount, you only have a certain amount of time to prepare for that storm. And that's, I think, where Sony is right now. I think that there is a storm coming. I think that's obvious. And they have to really ensure that every day until that storm finally arrives, they are focused on preparing and doing everything they can to not just weather that storm, but hopefully overcome it and come out on top. You know what I mean? And get through it and be better off for it. I think that's what we want because, look, you're saying all the fear mongering has set you all up for failure. I don't understand how anyone can honestly think an established AAA IP with millions of fans like Horizon, The Last of Us, or Ghost is going to struggle. It's not that these IP are going to struggle, Shelly, because I think you're correct about that. It's not that like, oh man, Ghost is going to do poorly or struggle or the next Last of Us. It's not. It's the scale of it all, where it's like, what is needed from these games in order to keep Sony's gaming business profitable? That's the key there. Ghost, The Last of Us, Horizon, they're all going to sell incredibly well. But then you have to ask, okay, well, how much did they cost to make and market? How much are they being sold for? $70? Okay. What are our profit margins? These are basically, this is what we're seeing right now. And I'll tell you this. The next quarter, the next earnings report, it'll be their yearly earnings report. We're going to get a much better picture of the state in which Sony's in right now. Right now, what we can gather is they're making a live service pivot, in at least a halfway pivot. They are struggling with their profit margins. They're not as good as they should be. Doesn't mean that they can't get them back up. And they're pushing to sell more consoles, which is not a bad thing, I think. And they do have, I think, a good first quarter lined up with Helldivers 2 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. So I think between now and April and March of next year, I think they're pretty set. But they haven't really made any acquisitions lately. They haven't had any first-party game announcements. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are still missing. So it's just from my point of view. I'm just. I guess the thing is, when you think about Horizon and Ghost and all these successful games that Sony makes, that they will continue to make, and they'll do well, and hopefully some new IP as well, right? I'm thinking of that too, but I'm also just thinking like, what is their competition going to be doing though? That's all. I'm just also thinking about their competition and how, listen, man, I've been following the gaming industry long enough to know that a gaming brand and a gaming platform can be on top of the world 1 second and at the bottom the next. We've witnessed that, guys. And I think we just need to keep that in mind. We've witnessed that happen in real time multiple times in this industry. I'm not saying you have to fearmonger and be like, I'm scared for the PlayStation brand. I'm not saying you have to do that. No, it's a little strange. I just think you have to be aware that Sony is not immune. Like, PlayStation is not invincible. They're not bulletproof. And if anything, this last year should serve as a reminder of that. And that's a good thing, though, right? That's a good thing because it means that they have to stay on their toes and they have to continue to be aware. But who decides that? Well, I guess you're right. I mean, at the end of the day, the market will decide. Right now, Sony still does have the lion's share of the market share. And that is something we might want to pay attention to next year as well. Totokism's going to take over. I mean, it's true. So I'm just saying we're in an in-between right now. We're in a in-between state right now. PlayStation's in an in-between state. And I think that this latest earnings report from Sony, I think it just indicates that. Saying, MBG, you surely understand that PlayStation has core advantages than the creators of Rumbleverse. Surely you see that. I'll be honest, like, I don't know. So if you're talking about like having a confidence in their live service games, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea what to expect from Sony's live service games. I'm hoping they're good, but I don't know. Hey, MBG, have you heard that Starfield's dropped 95% of their player base? What do you think about that? I don't know if that's true or not, but I mean, that's a little, if that's true, that's a little bit surprising. It's a little bit. Shadowlink with the super chat saying, think Jim Ryan tried mixing Sony dev skills into games as a service? I do. I think Jim lacked the confidence in Sony's single player. And that concerns me. It does. Because, look, regardless of what we think about Jim, he was at PlayStation for a long time. And he's a smart businessman in the sense that, like, I think people forget that he made Sony and PlayStation completely dominant in Europe. That's how he got to the CEO position. Now, granted, you know, being a CEO is very different than, you know, trying to lead in a certain territory. There's no denying that. But what I'm just saying is that, like, what concerns me about Jim Ryan's time as PlayStation CEO is his what's the word I'm looking for? The lack of patience with the live service push. That to me is like what, because it's like, it's not that he doesn't understand game development takes time. Of course, he's the PlayStation CEO. You have to know that to be the CEO. But he just had this kind of eagerness to he pushed it. It was so earnest. You know what I mean? Where it's like we got to do this and we got to do it now and we got to do it fast. We got to like expedite the process. That worries me because it's like, why? Like what? Like he almost operating as if there's something looming, right? Like there's some kind of fear looming that is making, and it could just be greed, of course, but I just wonder why that is. The world is ending. Well, that might be why. Yeah, that might be why. But he just, I don't know, he just had this kind of approach to it where it very much was like, we got to do it, and we got to do it now, and we got to do it quick. And I just wonder why that is. I don't think he ever really explained that. Dark Horse, you're saying Starfield currently has 24,300 players on Steam. That's good for a single player game? That sounds pretty good to me. That's, I mean, I 24,000 players, that's a lot, I think. So I don't know. That to me is what makes me... You're saying it's because of the moves that Microsoft is making? I mean, that could be why. Certainly. You know, maybe that is why. Maybe it does purely come down to revenue. Because one of the things that Microsoft are doing, buying Bethesda, buying Activision, one of the things these major acquisitions from Microsoft are guaranteeing is a massive overnight increase in revenue, which is more likely to lead to a increase in profitability as well. So maybe you're right. Maybe it is that simple. Jim Ryan just felt the pressure of like Sony can't get left behind in terms of being a revenue leader and hopefully a profit leader. Hopefully. What is this? Wow. My wife just sent me a picture of she took a screenshot of, I guess she tuned into my stream momentarily, and a pop-up in the chat said save up to $66 on YouTube TV. You gotta be, come on. No way. No way. What is happening? What is happening? This is getting crazy. Maybe it has something to do with Sony, man. Like the number 66. What would... That's crazy. You know what? The next first party Sony game is going to review on Metacritic at a 66. That's what it's telling me. You're saying MBG Starfield is ahead of Madden 24 on Xbox right now. If 5% of that player base is then 100% of Madden's, that's batshit. Yeah, if I had to, again, I'm not looking in this up, but if I had to I'm assuming Starfield still has a pretty strong player base, you know? Let me see here. We got Mario B saying, starting to think Jim was fired at this point. Yeah, well, I don't know that fired is the right word. I think Jim was asked to retire. I think that's what it was. Yeah, Shelly, listen, I understand what you're saying. I do. Jim Ryan is still the CEO of PlayStation until March of next year, but they don't have another one lined up. That tells you all you need to know. It does. Or, listen, I don't want to say that he was necessarily fired, but I've speculated before that Jim may have seen the writing on the wall. And he was like, well, guys, I think I'm going to retire now. Because that would explain also why they don't have a CEO lined up. We're like, wait. They're like, huh? Wait, what? It could be either or. All I know is this. Jim Ryan is not that relevant to the conversation anymore. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't. If he was fired, if he decided to retire, if he was asked to retire, none of it matters because he's going to leave anyway. It's over, you know? The only thing that matters now is who's taking his place. That is all that matters. That's it. I do think he may have made some mistakes and it might be costing Sony right now to a degree, but you know, it's not like it's unheard of. No one was lined up because they weren't expecting it. Here's another angle that I don't think anybody considered. Maybe he got pissed off and chose to retire. Has anybody thought of that? Because if you think about it, maybe Jim Ryan was the one responsible for the live service push, right? Maybe the higher ups at Sony were like, Jim, we're questioning you at this point, and we want to make some changes. And Jim's like, no, like this is what we should do. And you're like, no, we want to make some changes. And he's like, you know what, fuck this. And he's like, I'm out. That could have been it. I mean, maybe he saw all the memes, bro. Maybe he saw all the memes and he's like, you know what? This just ain't worth it no more. Maybe that's what happened. But Mario B, thank you for the super chat, man. We also have Beezer1138 saying God of War Ragnarok lo-fi beats video just dropped. Yeah, we got to check out. I'll check that out before I end the stream. The God of War blooper video. I just want to make sure I'm finished saying everything I have to say before we do that. All right, let's see. Did I finish all my topics here? Looks like I did. Let me just do a quick scroll through here. Make sure there's nothing I missed before we move on. So 46.6 million PS5 sold. What else? Oh, the Pulse Explorer earbuds and the Pulse Elite headset for PS5 are now up for pre-order. Just a heads up for anybody who's interested in that. Looking forward to it. I will say this really quick. Again, there's been a lot of concern, but I do want to highlight once again, Sony shipped a very high number of PS5s. It seems like at the end of the day, regardless of anything else, the PS5 is on track to be a very, very successful console. I think it was always on track to be successful, but it is good to see that it's still doing very well. And that's good at the very least, because it shows that the core business that surrounds the console is still thriving. And I think that's where, at this point in time, I do think that is something certainly worth celebrating. What else? I think I covered everything, guys. Oh, wait, there was one other thing. I got to bring it up here. Where is it? Why can't I find it? Oh, here we go. I have this article from Push Square. It says physical games represented just 4% of sales for PlayStation last quarter. Sony's financials for Q2 of 2023 are here, and the report illuminates that physical games are a drop in the bucket for PlayStation these days. Sony Interactive Entertainment had a record-breaking second quarter in terms of revenue. Of that total, physical games accounts for about 35.5 billion yen, which comes out to roughly 4%. For comparison's sake, digital sales of full games on PlayStation Store represents 21% of total revenue. This isn't an unusually low stat. Physical games have been a small percentage of PlayStation's revenue stream for a good while now. However, what's interesting about it is that in this record-breaking Q2, physical games is the only sales category that has decreased year on year. By that same measure, all other areas saw significant growth. So I just wanted to mention this as well. Makes me sad. Yeah, it is sad. It's not shocking or surprising, but yeah, is this the last gen for physical? I don't think so, but I definitely think that we're going to start to see, as we get closer to the end of this generation, we're going to see less and less physical. I think more developers are going to start going digital only and whatnot, but sad days, man. Sad days. MBG will eventually have to embrace all digital. I hope not. All right, I'm going to bring up this God of War video now. I'm curious to see it. Give me just a minute here. All right. Let's I don't have my headphones on me, so I'll just play it through the really quick before I watch this. JD Gamer with a $5 super chat says, "What happens if Microsoft gets the rumored GTA 6 exclusivity? What happens to PlayStation as Microsoft buys more studios and takes them exclusive?" I mean, these are good questions you're asking, JD Gamer. First off, I don't think anything's going to happen with GTA 6 in terms of exclusivity. It's going to be on all platforms. But the second part of your question, where what happens if Microsoft continues to eat up more studios and take these games off of PlayStation? Assuming Microsoft doesn't actually go third-party publisher, I mean, I think it's just going to continue to hurt Sony. I do. I think that's all it boils down to. Is it's just every game that was once on PlayStation that gets taken off it's just going to hurt them. I don't know that it'll hurt them to a degree where it's like suddenly they're on the ropes again. I think that would be very extreme. It would take a lot. But you know, it's just something that's the question, isn't it? I mean, those are probably questions that Sony's executives are asking right now. Those are questions that they're probably going to ask the next CEO or whoever they're going to interview, where it's like, this is a problem we're running into where our competition is actually starting to take games away from us. What's your solution to that? What's your response to that? Jim Ryan's was live service games. So that could still be their response at the end of the day. But it's a good question. But JD Gamer, I do appreciate the super chat, bud. We also have Ice Rezo with a $5 super chat saying, "In my opinion, Valve could be trying to enter the console business. Their Steam Deck already can connect to a TV. They could leverage their Steam store." Yeah, I didn't think about that. That is certainly an angle that Valve could be taking. I just saw apparently there's like an OLED model or something that's leaking. They could. I feel like Valve tried this before with I forget what they called it, but they had like a bunch of different like PC console-esque things you could buy, like a bunch of them. I don't think that worked out too well for them, but you're not wrong. I mean, I just saw with the whole, or not, I didn't just see it, but when the iPhone 15 Pro was coming out and it's like, hey, you could play full-blown AAA games on here. I saw people like putting on connecting some adapters and stuff and connecting a controller, and they were like, this is my console now. And they're like playing it on their TV. I'm like, interesting. I don't necessarily know that these things are a threat to like the PS5 and the Switch 2, but as technology continues to advance and the way in which we can play our games in a more traditional console-esque setting changes, yeah, it could definitely be something we gotta, not we, but Sony and Nintendo and maybe even Microsoft have to consider and think about. So certainly, Ice. And thank you for the super chat, bud. Let me I gotta shrink my screen here a little bit so I can actually see this. I do apologize if you hear a little bit of echo. Again, I have to play this through my speakers. I'm gonna try to keep it low enough to where it doesn't interfere, but let's see. It's actually, hold on. I'm not hearing the sound. I gotta. Why am I not hearing any sound? Is there just no sound in this part? Guys, really, are you hearing sound? You can hear? There. All right. You know what? Give me a sec. Let me just grab my headphones. Hold on. I want to be able to hear it too. All right. We should be good now. Oh my god. That's awesome. Oh my god, that's so creepy. That is so weird.
This way, Kratos. This way. This way. This way. This way, Kratos.
Oh my god, what is happening?
You want some of this?
Be serious.
Oh, what the hell? What? What's that? Dude, the way he just flew away.
All truth. All the answers. We could find out why we're here.
Oh man, this is incredible. Oh my god, Atreus' face right there was horrific, bro.
Do something about it!
God of Dance. Oh man. No way. Is this when they were doing their Fortnite collab? Oh my god, dude. Dude, the ones where they get all like deformed and stuff is they're always so disturbing. Oh, holy shit. Oh my god. Oh, look at that. That's messed up.
Best of luck. Another door. We'll have to check that one too.
What was that yell? Dude, this is amazing.
Got him!
Well, that was something.
Oh, that was... Wait, it's not over yet. Wow, look at that.
Atreus!
So,
Atreus! Atreus, to me! Atreus, now!
Dude.
maybe we should get going.
Atreus, now!
Dude, that is amazing. Atreus! Atreus, now! That shit was gold. Oh, man. We need more of that. We need more of that, honestly. Atreus! That was amazing. And suddenly, just like that, you know what? Check the lo-fi beats. That would be like a copyright, would it? Did they actually release that? I thought that was a joke. Oh, holy shit, you're right. Lo-fi, God of War Ragnarok, lo-fi beats to Journal to. It's supposed to be a playoff of a lo-fi cat. That's funny. Good stuff, man. Yeah, God of War Ragnarok was incredible. I love that game. Oh man, the journal too. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Let me see here. Well, MEG, did you see Mighty Keith's Xbox fans react to Spider-Man 2? I did. Yeah. I did. I think we reacted to that here. But guys, you know what? I think this is actually going to do it for this stream today. Definitely a shorter stream, but that's the thing is we really only had one main topic to discuss, and I don't want to just, artificially extend the stream just for the sake of it. I did talk about everything I wanted to talk about. Wanted to go over Sony's earnings. I wanted to talk about, them delaying half their live service games and, where things may or may not be headed. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was a pretty good conversation. You're saying Valve has announced the Steam Deck OLED. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I gotta do it now quick before the sun comes over. But yeah, I saw that one too. We reacted to that. The Todd Howard Starfield Honest Conference. That was really funny. That was crazy. That was actually wild. But it was very funny. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for today's stream on the shorter side. But I hope you did enjoy it. I want to, before I head out, just as always, thank you guys for all of your continued support. Everybody who gifted memberships today, everybody who donated a super chat. Like I said, I am fan funded here. If it wasn't for your support, I wouldn't be able to do this. And I'm very grateful to be able to do this. I enjoy doing it. So thank you so much for that. I also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. He's been doing a great job keeping up with all the streams and doing all the timestamps. So if you see him in the comments, give him a big thank you. And thank you so much for what you do, Devil Shooter. And the only other thing I want to ask you guys to do before you head out is just take a second as you're leaving, hit that like button. Definitely helps the channel. But that does it. We'll see what, tomorrow and this upcoming weekend and next week brings. And it should be interesting. But that does it, guys. I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, actually. Probably go work out right now. Probably what I'll do. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And I will catch you guys here in the next one. So until then, guys, take care.